Section 29. But we will grant you, if you please, that they were all saints, that they all had the Spirit, that they all wrought miracles, which, however, you do not require. But tell me this, was any one of them made a saint? Did any one of them receive the Spirit or work miracles in the name or by virtue of free will, or to confirm the doctrine of free will? Far be such a thought, you will say, but in the name and by virtue of Jesus Christ, and for the confirmation of the doctrine of Christ, all these things were done. Why then do you bring forward the sanctity, the Spirit, and the miracles of these in confirmation of the doctrine of free will, for which they were not wrought and given? Their miracles, Spirit, and sanctity, therefore, belong to us who preach Jesus Christ, and not the ability and works of men. And now what wonder if those who were thus wholly spiritual and wonderful for miracles were sometimes under the influence of the flesh, and spoke and wrought according to the flesh, since that happened not once only to the very apostles under Christ himself. For you do not deny, but assert that free will does not belong to the Spirit or to Christ, but is human, so that the Spirit, who is promised to glorify Christ, cannot preach free will. If therefore the fathers have at any time preached free will, they've certainly spoken from the flesh, seeing they were men, not from the Spirit of God. Much less did they work miracles for its confirmation. Wherefore your allegation concerning the sanctity, the Spirit, and the miracles of the fathers is nothing to the purpose, because free will is not proved thereby, but the doctrine of Jesus Christ against the doctrine of free will. But come, show forth still that you are on the side of free will, and assert that a doctrine of this kind is true, that is, that it proceeds from the Spirit of God. Show forth still, I say, the Spirit, still work miracles, still evidence sanctity. Certainly you, who make the assertion, owe this to us who deny these things. The Spirit, sanctity, and miracles ought not to be demanded of us who maintain the negative, but from you who assert in the affirmative. The negative proposes nothing, is nothing, and is bound to prove nothing, nor ought to be proved. It is the affirmative that ought to be proved. You assert the power of free will in the human cause, but no miracle was ever seen or heard of as proceeding from God in support of a doctrine of the human cause, only in support of the doctrines of the divine cause. And we are commanded to receive no doctrine whatever that is not first proved by signs from on high. Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 15 to 22. Nay, the Scripture calls man vanity and a lie, which is nothing less than saying that all human things are vanities and lies. Come forward, then, come forward, I say, and prove that your doctrine, proceeding from human vanity and a lie, is true. Where is now your showing forth the Spirit? Where your sanctity? Where are your miracles? I see your talents, your erudition, and your authority, but those things God has given alike unto all the world. But, however, we will not compel you to work great miracles, nor to cure a lame horse, lest you should plead as an excuse the carnality of the age. Although God is wont to confirm his doctrines by miracles, without any respect to the carnality of the age, nor is he at all moved either by the merits or demerits of a carnal age, but by pure mercy and grace, and a love of souls which are to be confirmed by solid truth unto their glory. But we give you the choice of working any miracles, as small an one as you please. But come, I, in order to irritate your Baal into action, insult and challenge you to create even one frog in the name and by virtue of free will, of which the Gentile and impious Magi in Egypt could create many. I will not put you to the task of creating lice, which neither could they produce, but I will descend a little lower yet. Take even one flea or louse, for you tempt and deride our God by your curing of the lame horse, and if, after you've combined all the powers and concentrated all the efforts both of your God and your advocates, you can, in the name and by virtue of free will, kill it, you shall be victors. Your cause shall be established, and we also will immediately come over and adore that God of yours, that wonderful killer of the louse. Not that I deny that you could even remove mountains, but it is one thing to say that a certain thing was done by free will, and another to prove it. And what I have said concerning miracles, I say also concerning sanctity. If you can, out of such a series of ages, men, and all the things which you have mentioned, show forth one work, if it be but the lifting a straw from the earth, or one word, if it be but the syllable my, or one thought of free will, if it be but the faintest sigh, by which men applied themselves unto grace, or by which they have merited the Spirit, or by which they have obtained pardon, or by which they have prevailed with God even in the smallest degree, I say nothing about being sanctified thereby. Again I say you shall be victors and we vanquished, and that, as I repeat, in the name and by virtue of free will. For what things soever are wrought in men by the power of divine creation are supported by Scripture testimonies in abundance. And certainly you ought to produce the same, unless you would appear such ridiculous teachers as to spread abroad throughout the world with so much arrogance and authority doctrines concerning that of which you cannot produce one proof. For such doctrines will be called mere dreams, which are followed by nothing, than which nothing can be more disgraceful to men of so many ages, so great, so learned, so holy, and so miraculous. And if this be the case, we shall rank even the Stoics before you. For although they took upon them to describe such a wise man as they never saw, yet they did attempt to set forth some part of the character, but you cannot set forth anything whatever, not even the shadow of your doctrine. The same also I observe concerning the Spirit. If you can produce one out of all the assertors of free will who ever had a strength of mind and affection even in the smallest degree, so as in the name and by virtue of free will to be able to disregard 1 farthing, or to be willing to be without 1 farthing, or to bear 1 word or sign of injury, I do not speak of the stoical contempt of riches, life, and fame, again the palm of victory shall be yours, and we, as the vanquished, will willingly pass under the spear. And these proofs you, who with such trumpeting mouths sound forth the power of free will, are bound to produce before us, or else again you will appear to be striving to give establishment to a nothing, or to be acting like him who sat to see a play in an empty theatre. Section 30. But I will easily prove to you the contrary of all this, that such holy men as you boast of, whenever they approach God, either to pray or to do, approach him utterly forgetful of their own free will and despairing of themselves, crying unto him for pure grace only, feeling at the same time that they deserve everything that is the contrary. In this state was Augustine often, and in the same state was Bernard, when at the point of death he said, I have lost my time because I have lived wrong. I do not see here that there was any power spoken of which could apply itself unto grace, but that all power was condemned as being only averse, although those same saints, at the time when they disputed concerning free will, spoke otherwise. And the same I see has happened unto all, that when they are engaged in words and disputations they are one thing, but another when they come to experience and practice. In the former they speak differently from what they felt before, in the latter they feel differently from what they spoke before. But men, good as well as bad, are to be judged of more from what they feel than from what they say. But we will indulge you still further. We will not require miracles, the Spirit, and sanctity. We return to the doctrine itself. We only require this of you, that you would at least explain to us what work, what word, what thought, that power of free will can move, attempt, or perform in order to apply itself unto grace. For it is not enough to say, there is a certain power of free will. For what is more easily said than this? Nor does such a way of proceeding become men the most learned and the most holy, who have been approved by so many ages, but must be called baby-like, as we say in a German proverb. It must be defined what that power is, what it can do, in what it is passive, and what takes place. To give you an example, for I shall press you most homely, this is what is required. Whether that power must pray, or fast, or labour, or chastise the body, or give alms, or what other work of this kind it must do, or attempt. For if it be a power, it must do some kind of work. But here you are more dumb than seraphian frogs and fishes. And how should you give the definition when, according to your own testimony, you are at an uncertainty about the power itself, at difference among each other, and inconsistent with yourselves? And what must become of the definition when the thing to be defined has no consistency in itself? But be it so that since the time of Plato you are at length agreed among yourselves concerning the power itself, and that its work may be defined to be praying, or fasting, or something of the same kind, which perhaps still lies undiscovered in the ideas of Plato, who shall certify us that such is truth, that it pleases God, and that we are doing right in safety? Especially when you yourselves assert that there is a human cause which has not the testimony of the Spirit, because of its having been handled by philosophers, and having existed in the world before Christ came, and before the Spirit was sent down from heaven. It is most certain, then, that this doctrine was not sent down from heaven with the Spirit, but sprung from the earth long before, and therefore there is need of weighty testimony whereby it may be confirmed to be true and sure. We will grant, therefore, that we are private individuals and few, and you public characters and many, we ignorant and you the most learned, we stupid and you the most acute, we creatures of yesterday and you older than Deucalion. We never received, and you approved by so many ages. In a word, we sinners, carnal and dolts, and you awe-striking to the very devils for your sanctity, spirit, and miracles. Yet allow us the right at least of Turks and Jews to ask of you that reason for your doctrine which your favourite Peter has commanded you to give. We ask it of you in the most modest way, that is, we do not require it to be proved by sanctity, by the Spirit, and by miracles, which, however, we could do in our own right, seeing that you yourselves require that of others. Nay, we even indulge you so far as not to require you to produce any example of a work, a word, or a thought in confirmation of your doctrine, but only to explain to us the doctrine itself, and merely to tell us plainly what you would have to be understood by it, and what the form of it is. If you will not or cannot do this, then let us at least attempt to set forth an example of it ourselves. For you are as bad as the Pope himself and his followers, who say, "You are to do as we say, but not to do as we do." In the same manner you say that that power requires a work to be done, and so we shall be set on to work while you remain at your ease. But will you not grant us this, that the more you are in numbers, the longer you are in standing, the greater you are, the farther you are on all accounts superior to us, the more disgraceful it is to you that we, who in every respect are as nothing in your eyes, should desire to learn and practice your doctrine, and that you should not be able to prove it, either by any miracle, or by the killing of a louse, or by any the least motion of the Spirit, or by any the least work of sanctity, nor even to bring forth any example of it, either in work or word. And further, a thing unheard of before, that you should not be able to tell us plainly of what form the doctrine is, and how it is to be understood. Oh, excellent teachers of free will! What are you now but sound only? Who now, Erasmus, are they who boast of the Spirit but show it not forth, who say only and then wish men to believe them? Are not your friends they, who are thus extolled to the skies, and who can say nothing and yet boast of and exact such great things? We entreat, therefore, you and yours, my friend Erasmus, that you will allow us to stand aloof and tremble with fear, alarmed at the peril of our conscience, or at least to waive our assenting to a doctrine which, as you yourself see, even though you should succeed to the utmost, and all your arguments should be proved and established, is nothing but an empty term and a sounding of these syllables. There is a power of free will. There is a power of free will. Moreover, it still remains an uncertainty among your own friends themselves whether it be a term even or not, for they differ from each other and are inconsistent with themselves. It is most iniquitous, therefore, nay, the greatest of miseries, that our consciences, which Christ has redeemed by his blood, should be tormented by the ghost of one term, and that a term which has no certainty in it. And yet, if we should not suffer ourselves to be thus tormented, we should be held as guilty of unheard-of pride for disregarding so many fathers of so many ages who have asserted free will. Whereas the truth is, as you see from what has been said, they never defined anything whatever concerning free will, but the doctrine of free will is erected under the covering and upon the basis of their name, of which nevertheless they can show no form, and for which they can fix no term, and thus they delude the world with a term that is a lie.